Are you a businesswoman who is finding it challenging to get your ideas across and make a point? Welcome to Speakers Who Get Results with Elizabeth Bachman, a podcast dedicated to helping women get the visibility they want, whether making a speech or talking in a meeting. Every week, get valuable lessons from Elizabeth or learn from her roundtable conversations with experts and speakers on how to make a difference, not just a point. On to the show with your host, Elizabeth Bachman.
Hello, and welcome to Speakers Who Get Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host, and this is the podcast where we talk about leadership, diversity, especially gender diversity, communication skills, presentation skills, and so much more. Before I get to my very interesting guest today, I'd like to invite you to see where your skills are strong by taking our free 4-minute assessment at speakforresultsquiz.com. That's www.speakforresultsquiz.com. And that's where you can see where your presentation skills are strong and where perhaps a little bit of support could get you the results you need and the recognition that you deserve. My guest today is my wonderful friend, Jennifer Kenny, Jen, whom I have been amazed by and informed by for several years that I've known her. She's just published a book called The Innovation Mindset, all about how people think and how to move forward. And she has some very interesting insights to share. The official bio is Jennifer Kenny is a master of innovation practices with 25 years of experience mentoring industry leaders towards high performance. Jennifer has spearheaded transformational systems and design programs for a diverse portfolio of technical clients, such as the Toyota Research Institute, Cisco Systems, IBM, Wells Fargo, Intel, and Capital One, all those little bitty companies. With a background in science and engineering, Jen was formerly Chief Information Officer at the Stanford Research Institute. Born in Ireland, she now lives in the Bay Area and travels internationally as a speaker, writer, workshop leader, and mentor on the topics of human innovation, the business value of gender balance, and regenerative leadership. Jennifer is a graduate of University College Dublin, where she completed a Bachelor of Science in Geology, and the Royal School of Mines at the Imperial College London, where she graduated with a Master of Science in Geotechnical Engineering. And now she uses all that information to help us find all the depths and the rocks in our road and the various depths of how we can innovate, how we can lead. It was a fascinating conversation. I know you'll enjoy it. On to the interview with Jennifer Kenny. Jen Kenny, my friend, I am so happy to have you on Speakers Who Get Results. Finally, I got you.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. Delighted to see you.
Well, and we're going to be broadcasting this for International Women's Day, which I think is perfect because I've been quoting you for a couple of years since you first told me about some of your concepts. And now you have a book out. So I have my copy of The Innovation Mindset.
Super. Thank you.
Here's
you.
Mine. Yes, exactly. Before we get into all the stuff that you have to talk about, let me ask you, who would be your dream interview? You could interview someone who's no longer with us. Who would it be? What would you ask them? And who should be listening?
Okay. So love this question, Elizabeth. So it would definitely be Nelson Mandela. And the reason why I would like to talk to him is because I think that for our future, if our future is to be as joyful and vibrant and innovative as we have the capacity to make it, but seem to be bungling here and there, put it mildly, is the qualities that he demonstrated are, and specifically those are trust, courage, forgiveness, persistence, patience. All of those qualities to me are core qualities of a really, really good leader. And I have been interested particularly in forgiveness and being able to move on and be in the present with people, which is hugely important for innovation. I've been particularly interested in those since I was a child because when I was 11, I remember hearing Mairead Kerrigan-Maguire on the TV, and she was the one who won the Nobel Peace Prize related to the peace work in Northern Ireland. And she said, forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves.
Right.
For somebody who had been in prison for that long to be able to walk out the door and forgive half of the inhabitants of the country, to me is just remarkable. So yeah, it would be Nelson Mandela. And who should be listening? Everybody.
Everybody should be listening. You bet.
Patience,
you bet.
Forgiveness, trust, compassion, all of those things. Yes.
I love that. Well, I asked you to talk about this because you have such interesting things to say about innovation, the innovation mindset. And so give me the 30-second why it matters and what's your definition of innovation?
So why it matters is it's how we're going to get ourselves out of the holes we've dug ourselves into. So we're all, aware that we're living on a tiny little ball of dust that's kind of, having problems with this climate at the moment. Never mind, all the other issues that we're trying to deal with in terms of equality and food distribution and all those things, education, etc. So I think that for me, innovation is what's going to bring us out of that. It's how do we help ourselves be able to think differently about issues that we were currently and repeatedly and persistently see. And so for me, the big difference and why I set out to write this book is I really wanted to be able to democratize innovation for everybody, because we are all by nature innovators. Even if you don't have the title, you're still an innovator, because you have the capacity to see the world differently than anyone else, because you have the capacity to build sophisticated interpretations and educate yourself and learn and work with other people to understand things differently. And so the ability to be able to do that as a practice, to me, is hugely important. So lots of people will conflate innovation with ideation or invention. To me, innovation...
Wait. So define that, please. So conflate means put together innovation and ideation. Say for our international listeners and for me, can you say that in simpler words, please?
Yeah. So they will mix up or confuse them, and they will fold them into each other, which is really kind of what conflate means. They'll fold them into each other and they will treat them almost as if they're the same. So invention is making a thing, and your invention may or may not be successful. Ideation is coming up with an idea, and your idea may or may not impact anyone else's life other than your own, even if it does impact your own. But innovation is how do we build ourselves as practitioners of bringing new practices to other human beings.
So what do you mean by, if innovation is not, I do sort of think of innovation as creating the next new thing. In your mind, what is this about? And you said that this is learnable, which I'm excited about because I never thought I was innovative enough. So how can we learn how to be innovative?
So I wouldn't say that innovation is creating the next new thing. That's only part of what innovation is, because the next new thing, as we all know, takes sometimes 20 years for communities to adopt new ideas. So the next new thing isn't the next new thing if it's 20 years later. So the opportunity here is for people to be able to understand how to be able to think of their innovations as practices that they're going to bring forward to a community. So how do we change how we do certain things? So, for example, if you take the simplest one is we take our iPhone, that has changed how we think about photography, research, communication, texting, messaging, scheduling, organizing, right? It has changed all of our practices for good or bad, but it has changed all of our practices significantly. And so the way that we think about how we influence other people's lives, hopefully for the good, is through changing their practices.
Okay.
So now you can turn that around on yourself and go, I need to build practices for myself so that I can build myself as an innovator. And part of what we cover in the innovation mindset is looking at some of those practices and helping people understand how they can build those practices as something that they would engage in on a daily basis.
And I would imagine that the benefit of that would be obvious, but what is the benefit? Yeah, I want to hear it in your words.
Yeah, so the benefit of that is that we don't waste all of the potential that we have in the world for things to be better. And I think that we have wasted an enormous amount of global talent and global innovation capacity, global identification of new possibilities, of better ways of doing things, of better products and services we can offer, because we have designated innovators and designated other people. And so what I'm interested in is both how do I serve the designated innovators, I love working with them, but also how do I help democratize innovation and have it be available as a practice to everybody.
So democratizing innovation, that's an exciting thing. You said something, though, just now about wasting talent. And one of the things that also really interests me in the work that you do is talking about the benefit, why gender balanced teams are so important, and why if we've been going this far with, say, 50% of our capacity because we're only defining the way we think one way, how could we get to 100% capacity? And that's your phrase, 100% capacity.
Yeah. So my next book, because my focus is very much on innovation and how do we build our innovation capacity in the world, inside companies and in the world. So one of the really interesting statistics coming out of and it's generally available coming out of the research that I've done, is to understand that gender balanced teams are more innovative. They come up with more discontinuous innovation ideas, so things that are greater leaps forward. They tend to get them to market and successfully embedded in human practices faster. They tend to have less failure rates because they're already throwing out ideas that they don't think are going to work, or concepts that they don't think are going to work. And so gender balanced teams, in general, this data's out there, they're more innovative. So then my question was, what are those teams doing that are different from any other team? And how much of it has to do with the fact that women lead differently? And I think we're at the stage of accepting that that is a fact at this point. Women lead differently for whatever reason, whether it's, biological or social programming or whatever it is, we lead differently. And so my work took me towards understanding how we begin to identify that, how we put names on that, how we help people cultivate that, how we help people get rewarded and recognized for that inside companies. Because once we start doing that, we now open up that other half of our human capacity to be innovative, to be productive, to be more profitable, run more profitable companies, to impact, 7 major areas that we know gender balance has a significant impact on.
Can you give us an example of people you've worked with where this made a difference to how they performed or how they functioned?
Yes. So I think it's well known, and mostly sort of through the wire socially, that women tend to network cross-functionally across organizations. Men will network up and down the hierarchy. And again, it's a vast generalization. I'm not interested in making generalizations, but it allows us to be able to understand differences. And by understanding those differences, we can move beyond them.
So it's not all men or all women,
Absolutely.
but it's just sort of a general way of thinking.
Yeah. Absolutely not. It gives us a way of being able to look at things and invite people. I mean, it's biology, so it's going to be a bell curve. It's going to be a full spectrum. But if we understand the ends of the spectrum, then we can engage with it more effectively. So what I have seen is that if you have women who are more predisposed to cross-functional conversation, collaboration, exploration, getting to know people, any of that they will invariably bring in a broader base of people into any innovation conversation. And we also know that interdisciplinary innovation is, the final frontier. It's the place where we are potentially going to have the most groundbreaking innovations.
Okay, interdisciplinary innovation. Define that for us, please. You're such a scholar and you're so smart. I want to make sure that everybody, including me, understands all your words.
Yeah. No problem. So we all come in with scientific disciplines, and most of the work that I do is around the sciences, which lends itself to product development and all those other things. But you may be an engineer, you might be a material science, you might be a battery scientist, you might be an AI expert, you might be a machine learning expert. So people come in with experience in particular areas of different scientific disciplines. And because of that, they tend to gather together in those disciplines because they speak the same language. But it's when they start speaking across different disciplines that the potential for innovation expands. And
as, for instance,
in terms of what are the potential innovations?
Give us an example. Something. For instance, I'm thinking, for instance, being able to look up a recipe on your phone instead of looking it up in a recipe book. And I have gotten to the point, I'm someone who believes in books, but I've gotten to the point that if I have some turkey and some fennel and a couple of other things in my fridge, I'm going to put that into Google, see what comes up, take a screenshot. We were talking about phones. I'm going to take a screenshot of that, and then that's what I'm going to cook from. So that's an interdisciplinary photography, cooking, etc. Would that count?
Well, so I would. I
love metaphors.
No. It's an interesting one, Elizabeth. It definitely is. But so I would look at it more from what I'm familiar with, which is the first hybrid car. So the Prius, everybody knows, super successful. But what Toyota did with that was they took the notion of battery technology and they took the notion of the internal combustion engine, and they created a car that was able to run off both forms of energy. And then that's further extrapolated into exclusively battery cars and Teslas and things like that. So the interdisciplinary innovation that happened in there is you take people who have experience in battery technology, you take people who have experience in internal combustion engines, and you go, build me one engine. And how does this work? Right. And that has been obviously enormously successful. But for those people to get together in a room, for someone to think that that was possible, for them to figure out how to be able to work with each other and create one thing between them is pretty amazing. And so if you think about that, there are probably hundreds of thousands of those sort of breakthroughs that we could have as we get more and more proficient at the interdisciplinary innovation space.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I've also heard you talking about the difference between power with versus power over.
Yeah.
And I thought, ooh, that's a juicy one. What is that, and how does it fit in?
Yeah, so if we work exclusively from power over, which would be our current very hierarchical organizational structures, where the person at the top knows everything and the people at the bottom know exponentially less. Then what we're doing is we're basically saying innovation can only happen at the top levels. We don't believe that anyone at the bottom level is capable of innovation. And so we're reducing our innovation capacity right there. So for me, what's super interesting, there's a wonderful woman who wrote management science work in the 1920s. Her name is Mary Parker Follett. And she's the one who references most particularly this notion of power with and power over and power with. And what she was pointing to, and she was looking at it from a productivity standpoint, but for me, what she's really pointing to is you need to be able to create a dynamic environment where we have power, where we have a certain level of hierarchical power just from an organizational efficiency standpoint. And we also have a certain level of power with, where we can create that balance where people have a lot more autonomy to be able to innovate in the area in which they are working and knowledgeable. And so that balance and that dynamic is something that if we could move more towards more power with, I believe we could also unleash more innovation capacity.
How do we do that? I know, read the book, but yes. Jen, how do we do that?
So there's a thing that we work through as part of the programs that I run and work I deliver for clients is the power of making offers. And this work was first done in Oxford in the 1940s and 60s. And then it was brought into modern day by Terry Winograd and Fernando Flores, who wrote a book called Understanding Computers and Cognition. And the idea is that human beings have the capacity to be able to speak offers to each other. And so when they do that, they open up a space between them for learning, for co-invention, for design, for engagement, for all of those things. But in the absence of doing that, that just never happens. And so one of the things that people can do immediately, like right after listening to this podcast, is they can go, who do I want to make an offer to? Who do I want to engage with around making an offer? Like you made me an offer that said, I love what you're doing. I'd love to have you on my podcast. And I was like, that's a fabulous offer. Thank you very much. I want more people to derive value, hopefully, from what I'm doing. So the idea of making offers is a catalyst for a level of co-invention that allows us to be able to be more innovative. And yet most people don't do that because they make them, they get shut down, nobody listens, they're clumsy at making them, they're bad at making them, somebody doesn't pay attention, they don't fit the agenda, they're not on the schedule, they're not part of the strategy. And we haven't built the capacity inside organizations as a practice to really be able to listen to that. So that's one of the most basic and simple ways to get started.
Okay, I think that's all right. I'm going to go back and read that because it sounds like a great idea. And how do we apply it in our organization? How can someone apply that in their own organization? It makes me think about the suggestion box on the factory floor, and
the suggestion box on the factory floor might have had wonderful intentions in the beginning, but it basically became a way to not listen to people.
Yes.
You put your suggestion in there, we read them, we review them, we think about them, we never talk to you.
Okay.
So the difference, particularly in a power with structure, is people actually get to own their own offers and go and deliver on their own offers and go and get help to make those offers, bring those offers to fruition. And in the process of doing that, they grow and expand significantly. So everybody I've worked with, and I can actually say this statistically, has gotten promoted, because once you start actually listening to what matters to other people and making offers, all of a sudden you are now more valuable within the organization, even though the organization never thought you had to do that. Or, it did through some of the work we're doing, but it's not something that people automatically understand or learn or even have the support to do. So you're changing your organization to be able to support that level of autonomy, and you're showing people how to be able to step into that for themselves.
Okay. Well, I certainly get the point of learning how to make the offer right. So having made offers in a not so clever way in my deal that and then had doors slammed in my face.
Yeah.
This is why I teach this. It's because I've made all those mistakes.
Exactly.
I'll tell you that story every time, but it needs a bottle of wine, you and I. So
good.
How can we, if there's someone here who's listening and says, wow, this is really cool, I'd love to be able to know how to do this. But I'm in a power over organization. I'm in a hierarchical organization that doesn't care. I mean, people get used to being in charge and they get used to telling people, I'm an oldest child. I do that too. So I've had to really learn how to share things. So if you're one of the people who thinks this is a neat idea, but you're not in an organization that honors that, they're quite happy where they are.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Well, first of all, you can recognize they're not happy where they are. Because if they're running their organization exclusively as a hierarchical organization, they're missing opportunities, they're missing market opportunities, they're missing revenue opportunities, they're failing, they're losing customers. There's a bunch of things going on that they're not happy about. Now, the status quo might be okay, and they might be getting by, but if there are ambitious people anywhere in there who want things to be better, then they're your people that you want to talk to. So perfect example at the moment is I had a client from a previous client move to a new company, and she got in there and turned around and went, no, I'm not working like this. No, you old people all need to learn how to actually think for yourselves and bring the innovation mindset to life inside my team. So she got in touch with me, and we put together a very particular proposal for her to bring to her boss. And she basically did the internal selling herself, because she was like, I'm not stepping up to this huge request you're making of me, this huge ask, unless I get the help to actually begin to help my team understand how to think differently. So I think that, if you can find someone who's ambitious, either for themselves or for their organization, who's not happy with the status quo, even though they can tolerate it maybe more than you can, and you work to go and say, here's what I would like to do with my immediate team. Because I don't recommend rolling out any of these sort of things. I strongly recommend that they emerge through practice in the organization, and that you carefully seed instances of this work around the org, and it finally comes together and produces that big shift you're looking for.
Talk about seeding. So for our international listeners, seeding means dropping hints, telling little stories that then like seeds, like dropping seeds in the ground. It is a marketing term for those who haven't come across this before.
I would also consider it to start small projects that will grow into bigger things, right? So it is the idea of you start with something small and it grows into something bigger. And I think that opportunity, we sometimes forget to play the long game. And we sometimes leave our patients at the door. And sometimes these things take, 9, 12, 18, 24 months. But rather get started than suffer and be where you're still at 24 months from now. So
yes. When you are working like this, it has, this is again part of the practice of innovation, right? And across disciplines, across silos, if you will,
absolutely.
Across departments. Another question is, how do you get started with this cross-functional working and ideas in companies where there are departments that are terrified of sharing, terrified that anyone who comes in to work across is going to be stealing from them. People who really cling to their silos. We've all seen those.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I think there's a process of, so I was doing a session once, and someone who had just joined said to me, so I'm going to headquarters tomorrow. What do you think I should do? And I said, I think that you should identify 4 or 5 people that you would like to build trust with.
Mm-hmm.
And you would understand why you want to build trust with them. And then you would identify offers that you can make to them that they may find valuable that will help you build trust with them, because they go hand in hand.
Creating allies, enrolling allies onto your team,
and
if you will.
Yes. And I would even take it further, which is enrolling people who would be your internal customers for projects that you might decide to launch later.
Okay.
Right?
I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So what you're doing is you're going, if I was to offer this person something valuable, a small project or something that my team could offer them, or a report they might be able to give that would be valuable in terms of what our organization could do for theirs, would they find that valuable? Would they accept it? Would they help me fine tune it to make sure it was as valuable as it could be for their team? So identifying places where you can begin to build small bridges and small relationships, and you can begin to identify people who are willing to say, "Ooh, if you brought me that report, I would love that. That would be valuable. Let me tell you, give me a draft of it. Let me review it. Let me see what could be valuable in that." So there's lots of small steps that people can make. And I think that because we all have innovation capacity, if someone tries to put that in a box, it's incredibly frustrating and demoralizing for everyone. So if you step outside of that, you will get support for it, because everyone else wants to do it too. You just have to have the courage. And it does take courage.
Talk a little bit more about the courage to innovate, the courage it takes.
Yeah, well, I think it takes, so take your example of your cross-functional person. It takes a lot of courage to go talk to someone in the next department and go, "Hey, listen, I've heard you complain about what the work that we give to you as part of what we do. Can you tell me more about why you don't like it? Can you tell me more about what it's not doing for you? Can you tell me more about what would be valuable for you?" And I think the courage to have those conversations, to hear things you don't want to hear, that takes courage. And to talk to people about uncomfortable topics that you'd all rather pretend didn't exist. The elephant in the room, so to speak.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So I think, the courage to go and do those are the first steps. I understand you're not satisfied with what my department delivers to you every Friday in a report format. Can you tell me why? And you sit there and you listen, you don't defend yourself. That also takes courage.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's hard.
Right?
Yep.
So it's like, how do you teach yourself to be able to rise above the noise and actually be able to do something that is valuable for another human being? And every one of us have that built in, programmed into ourselves. We just don't necessarily have the practices to be able to do it on a recurring basis that makes us feel good about it.
Okay. And one other question is, I've heard you say it's okay to be ambitious, to embrace. You had a great sentence, and I don't remember if I wrote down exactly what you said, but you said something of the permission to listen to your ambitions.
Yeah.
And that's something I think women especially are taught. It's not ladylike. Don't brag. Yeah. I don't know. My mother always used to say, "Don't brag. Good girls don't brag." Let's talk about the giving yourself permission to listen to your ambitions.
Yeah. So I think there's a difference between bragging and recognizing your own ambition. So, it's always better to have someone else blow your horn for you. So let's have that happen.
This is what allies are for. Yes. And sponsors and mentors.
You're doing for me. So thank you. But I think the listen to your own ambition. So there's a beautiful saying, which is alternately attributed to to Einstein, to the Talmud, heavens knows where it came from. But it basically says, desire is the engine of the universe.
Okay.
So I love the idea that we are all going around desiring things to be better, desiring to have more recognition for what we bring, desiring to be able to serve more people, desiring to be able to make other people's lives better, desiring to bring our ideas out into the world and have them be valued by other people and have them contribute to other people's lives. There's 1,000 different ways that we want to innovate. And if we don't listen to those desires and listen to that, what would be termed ambition, we're missing out both for ourselves and for our peers and for the people who are living on the planet with us at the same time as to the benefit that we could bring. And we've given it almost this sort of bad rap that it is ambition, and that ambition means climbing the corporate ladder and beating other people to the top. No, I believe ambition is our ambition to express ourselves in the world in a way that adds value to other humans.
Yes, it is. Significance is one of the basic human needs, of Maslow's basic human needs, and that's one I've always thought it's okay to be ambitious. That your significance, you want to make a difference. Yes, it's okay to do that.
I think it's not just okay. I think it's absolutely necessary.
Yes, right. Yeah, because if you have no desire to make a difference, then you rust, and you get smaller, and it makes me think of that. You fall into a rut, and as the saying goes, a rut is just a coffin with the ends kicked out. So let's remember that one. And Kenny, I am so happy I finally got you on Speakers Who Get Results. We've been asking you for about a year now, so hooray, we could talk about this. I'm absolutely bringing you back when the next book comes out, but I don't want to wait that long. I want to get you here for now. We will put all of this information in the Mindset. Buy the book. I haven't finished it, but what I've read was really good. I stayed up way too late to reading the book.
Thank you.
And I'll have to bring you back to talk about some more things, Jen. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much.
This has been Speakers Who Get Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman. If you enjoyed this, please tell your friends, subscribe to us, follow us on YouTube. That would be good. And especially leave us a good review on Apple Podcasts. Even if you're an Android user, Apple Podcasts is the one that matters. And that's how people find us. And we can have more people listen to brilliant guests like Jen Kenny. Jen, thanks for being on the show. This has been Elizabeth Bachman. I'll see you on the next one.
We have just concluded another great episode of Speakers Who Get Results with your host, Elizabeth Bachman. If you got value from today's episode, please feel free to share us with your friends and colleagues. You may also visit elizabethbachman.com for additional resources. Be sure to tune in every week for new episodes, and thanks for tuning in.